September 19th meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Sepula.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Moore is excused. Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Thomas is excused. Alder Rademacher.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 6th meeting?
So moved.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. There are no appearances, there is no public hearing, there is no consent agenda, no unfinished business. Under new business, item 2A, which is starred for immediate approval, consideration of resolution 22-9-2589, authorizing the issuance and sale of $2.5 million in general obligation refunding bonds, series 2022D, put forth by the finance director. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
Move to suspend the rules to take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Before Jeff gets up there, this is a bond that we're refinancing. Had to call the large sums, about $2.5 million. So we off at the last meeting was authorized for Jeff to start negotiations, and now he's back here with his negotiated prices and bonds. So.
It's all
Thank you.
yours.
Appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for taking me up front of your agenda. It's much appreciated. Nothing real fancy here. There's no new money, particularly in this issue, as I think you know. We're refunding existing debt. It was intended to be refunded way back in 2015 when it originally went into place. It was part of our CIP program, our ongoing capital improvements program. We had parked two maturities, as Mark said. One was $1 million, and the other one was $1.5 million of the original issue. There's great opportunity here to basically restructure those maturities and to really control your levy for debt service, so we don't have the bumps and the valleys in terms of tax levy each year as you're going into your budget time. So with Mark's help, we decided that we would restructure this out to 2034. I'd love to be able to tell you we're getting interest rates like we were over the last 10 years, but I think for all of us who do not live in a vacuum, I think you pretty much know that rates have been on the climb since the middle of this January. You can take a look at the yields that we have. They are at a 2.64% out to 3.73 in the 12th year. Doesn't sound terrible, but when we compare them, and I don't mean to be a pessimist, I'm really not. I guess I really enjoyed the last 10 to 12 years of almost free money. So in retrospect, we got a lot done for the city and its constituents at interest rates under 2%. So we can't cry over spilt milk, as my mother used to say. So we have a refinancing here where we need $2.5 million to refund those maturities. We did get some premium paid in, about $16,795.15. So we went out originally thinking we needed 2.5. We do need 2.5, but we only have to issue a par amount tonight of $2,485,000. So the par amount's reduced. It's required by the IRS. It's required by state law that when we do have premiums like that on a refunding, we need to reduce the par amount. It's a tax-exempt issue, and the IRS says we don't want you issuing any more tax-exempt bonds than are necessary because we as the federal government don't get anybody to pay us income tax on that. So all in all, with everything, we have a 3.87% all-in true interest cost rate. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. We primarily hit the targets for the annual debt service that Mark laid out for us, and again, happy to take any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions, Mark?
Just one quick question. Where do you see the rates going for the next If I don't know, it's,
I'm not a great prognosticator, Mark. I'm really good at yesterday. I'm the best Monday morning quarterback that you can find in terms of our market. I can tell you this, there's been tremendous volatility in the market, and what I mean by that is it seems like every couple of days the market moves up a couple basis points. So let's go back. 1% broken down into 100 basis points. Okay? So from from Friday to today, the market's off in most maturities at least 2 basis points, which is 0.02%. Some of the other maturities, 3 basis points. It doesn't sound like a lot, but every day when you start adding that to the market, we've gone from last December where we would have been issuing these instead of a 264, we might have had a 64 in the first year. So that's 200 basis points. For the first time in a long time, we're seeing an inverted yield curve, certainly in the Treasury market. Inverted yield curve means interest rates are higher on the short end, let's say in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years than they are in years 10, 11, and 12. Okay? Even though, to answer part of your question, Mark, we've seen on the short end a 300 basis point, 3% move on the short end in Treasuries, we aren't seeing it in the middle ranges of 10 and out long term. So I didn't look today as to the differential, but the 2-year Treasury a couple of weeks ago was 48 basis points higher than the 10-year. So almost a full 0.5% between the short money and the longer money. I'm hoping that the Federal Reserve will continue to try to tighten the money supply a bit. But when you look at what's happened, we've injected, as a country, $3-4 trillion worth of cash into the system. We're just printing it. I mean, you got to understand that's inflationary. There's no real value being created for those dollars. So I think we're going to see this for a while, Mark. I think as we get into the first quarter of next year.
next I'm looking at the market.
Yeah, that's where I knew you were going. I'd like to get in sooner than later. You know that since 2003, when we started to work together, that first quarter has been really good to us relative to pretty much any other time of the year. I think you're probably, Mark, going to see rates very similar to what we have today. I'm hoping that we're going to get back down a little bit lower, at least on the short end. But again, it's 2 to 3 basis points, and after 6 months, that adds up.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have questions? No?
Nope.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist. Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder DeFua.
Motion passes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next item, consideration of Resolution 22-9-2587, amending the boundary of Tax Incremental District Number 4, put forth by the CDA. Doug, were you going to address this?
Good evening, everybody. The request here is a resolution amending the boundary of Tax Increment District Number 4. This one is on the southern end of Monona Drive and was used for the Monona Drive improvements. Originally created in September of 2000, and the boundary amendment here is to improve the financial situation of the district by removing poorly performing parcels. 3 parcels in total are proposed to be removed, and they're all associated with the Village Lanes, former Village Lanes bowling alley on Owen Road. This will be the 4th of the allowable 4 boundary amendments. This has already been reviewed by the CDA a couple times. The Joint Review Board had their first meeting in early September. Earlier this evening, the CDA held a public hearing for this amendment as well. The second Joint Review Board meeting is scheduled for early October to meet to consider the amendments as well. The full packet is included within the City Council packet as well. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Questions, anyone? Doug?
Well, first, was there any reason to approve this tonight, or can it wait?
I was just looking at that. I believe joint review is scheduled for October 6th, so there would be a second city council meeting
Okay.
in between. So I think it
Okay.
can have the two reads. As
Okay.
I interpret that.
Yeah, okay. And then just a comment, so basically what this is we've got property that actually have a decrement. Since the district was created, they've gone down in value. And so, but the basis of the TIF increment is from, the beginning. So it's basically dragging down the performance of the overall district by having this property that's gone down, so. And if we do a project there, I assume we'll be creating a new TIF district anyway.
That's correct, yes.
I
Teresa?
thought we were 4 of 4, or whatever allowable numbers of districts we were already at.
We've made changes.
Amendments to this
4
one.
changes are allowed to a
Oh, that's right.
TIF.
Yeah, that's right. I remember reading that somewhere, and that was for a different matter. Thank you. I'm just curious, Doug, what is the term on this agreement?
So typically, they're 27 years, so it's really towards the end of that anyway, just a couple of years left.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, there's no more expenditure allowed anyway in this district.
Right, so it's met as allowable.
Yeah.
It's been years. So this TIF was set up back in 2000. There was 2 big projects. There was Frostwood Commons area, which is the initial TIF project. And there's also Woodland condos, which would be like Insight Fitness in the condos there. And this project helped pay basically from Manila Drive, basically from Broadway all the way up to Nichols. With that. The one issue, this is why it's taken so long, it took so long to pay it back, and that's why I want to take these 3 out, was when they originally set up, they didn't realize the Frostwoods was a Section 42, so the assessments didn't come in as high as they thought, so it's taken a lot longer to pay it back, so that was an issue with this, which I don't know. I wasn't here when they did the original TIF. I don't know if they took that into consideration at that time. So it's taken a little bit longer, it probably should.
Any other questions?
What's the
Teresa?
sort of a newbie question? What's the city's policies when it comes to determining whether TIF districts are created in the future? Are there strict regulations surrounding like public notice and participation
Yeah, there's a
in
whole
meetings
process.
and a whole big process? Yeah, I can see a lot
Doug,
of.
maybe you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think typically the CDA will wait until there is a significant project that meets their requirements before even starting that, because as soon as the district is created, the time starts and the clock is ticking. So the riverfront being a good example that district was created with that project in mind. Others have, the Monona Garden project, for example, may be able to take advantage of that too. But the riverfront sort of was the catalyst for that district. So there's definitely sort of an extensive public review process, noticing process, but also the finding that it be a reasonable project as well that is worthy of that. And so there's a full project plan that will include kind of a breakout of maybe the public infrastructure improvements and things as well. So definitely all reviewed in public by the CDA and a full process there.
And it has to be it has to be blighted too.
Right,
It has to be
exactly.
blighted
Yeah.
area.
Mhm.
And currently, I believe we're at 10.5% of our equalized values in TIF, and they're only allowed 12%. So.
That was my next question. Where are we at? Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, well, this will come back next time then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Next item, let's see here, is consideration of Resolution 22-9-2588, a resolution in recognition of Kurt Watinsky and Gail Sumi. This was put forward by the mayor. Kurt and Gail, there was some explanation of this in the packet, are both employees of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, long-term employees. Kurt is their lobbyist, basically. Gail does all of their communication. They're both retiring at the end of the year. And so the League, Jerry DeShane, reached out to all the mayors and asked if we'd be willing to pass a resolution just honoring their service, which they're having their annual convention later in October, and they'd like to present them the resolutions at the convention, so, but I'd like to get, he has a deadline that he needs it by, so, which is why it started for the immediate action. So is there a motion to take this out of order?
Move it to take it out of order.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Or any discussion?
I just was going to second what you had said. They're very, Kurt and Gail have both been, I've had more interaction with Kurt, but just really great to work with over the years, so.
And I think he's been there over 30 years.
Yeah.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you. Next item, discussion and possible action concerning construction and potential funding of a new public safety building. I did have Leah put together a webpage about the public safety building that the link is here. Doug said he had some problems using the link. I was able to use it earlier today, so I'm not sure what's going on, but it has all of the various studies that we've done in terms of long-term facilities on the page, and a little explanation of how we got to where we are now, and I am going to start promoting that to the public as well, because I think, obviously we want people to know about this. So I just put this on because I think if we're going to, we need to, number one, decide if we're going to pursue this, and number two, we need to decide if we're going to go to referendum, which would only be advisory. That's just the way the statutes work, but I do think it'd be important to go to referendum for it. And if we're going to do that, we've got a real timing issue here, because we would do it next April. We need the time to prepare for just getting all the information out, having public meetings, having tours, et cetera. If we don't do it next April, the next election isn't until the following spring, so it'll be a whole year, and the state has put in a lot of restrictions as to when you can do referendums other than outside of a regular election. So there's a time element involved here, and it's only going to get more expensive.
Yeah.
So I just, before we start, we do have Andrew Mayo is here via Zoom. Anybody has any questions? I'm hoping some of you had more of a chance to look at things since our last meeting. A couple of different questions have been raised I just wanted to address. First of all, the reason that this report specifically focuses on the area behind City Hall is because that's what the contract specified. Mm-hmm. We contracted with the FGM to determine if adding on to the current City Hall in that area was feasible. So that's why they looked. They weren't asked to look at any other sites. So that's why the report focuses on that. And we also wanted to be able to use as much of the current building as possible. In terms of spreading out, building it on this and any other buildings on areas of the park that do not have buildings on them now, I just would remind everyone that Winnequa Park is built in a landfill, and anytime you put a shovel in the ground over there, you could have potential problems. So we put in 2 small culverts, about 7 or 8 years ago, replaced 2 culverts here and down there on Winnequa Road. We found PCBs in both, and it was about 3 to 4 years before we had that all cleaned up, and we didn't even excavate very much over there. So that's always a consideration. And then just questions, I guess in terms of the administrative space, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but the square footage, the additional square footage in the admin area includes the space for the court, and we would be holding our our city council meetings over there rather than this room. We really want to get the court out of the library. We'd be holding court over there as well, and we'd be using the room as a training facility, but that's a big part of the additional square footage for the admin area. Is that correct, Andrew? Yeah. And then, the other question is, just to reiterate, and Andrew covered this last time too, the vast majority of the new space is space we need now. It's not to do with extra staff or anything. We are very short on space in all 3 areas right now. Everybody's on top of each other. There's no storage space. It's been a lot of real problems. So, given all that, Mark?
got two things to add, because we talked about numbers, the effect on the average homeowner. So on a 40-year loan, the cost per 100,000 is $183. The median home for 2022 in Winona is $351,500, which is equivalent, if you had a medium home, $642. If you did a 25-year loan, which would be $200 per 100,000 on a 25-year note, or $705 on a medium home in Winona. So,
Mark, could I just ask you to, like, for every $100,000 of value on my home, how
Yeah.
much per year would I be paying?
$183 for each 100,000.
200,000 home, double,
Double,
183
yeah.
times 2,
Yeah.
okay, per year,
That's for the 40 years.
for 40 years.
Yeah.
So per year for 40 years, okay.
And the 25-year would be about 700 extra a year.
Yes.
So we're talking big money here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and the average increase to the debt service, I'm just going to use the 40-year loan, would be $2,750,000.
That's how much we'd be paying on debt service every year.
That's estimated, but yes.
Okay. And of course, we don't have, Mark is estimating the percentage, the loan rates, right?
Yeah, and I got information. I mean, I got like the payment schedules from the Public Works one, so.
Okay. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions for Andrew. I think obviously this is not a final plan. We would be, I'm sure there's some areas we could cut back on, but it's overall, it's going to cost a lot of money.
The only question I would have for Mr. Mayo is just what research, or is it time to talk about ways we can save money through lowering our electrical bills every month for 40 years? I mean, is now the time to talk about that, or I'm sure it will be eventually, right?
Well,
I
we
mean,
will be, I mean, it's already planned for what, Gold Lead? Is that where your numbers
Yeah.
are from, Andrew?
The budget is based on a LEED Gold standard, and you're weighing two different buckets of money. There's your first cost, which is what Mark is basing that mill rate on, and then there's the life cycle cost, which is all those operating costs, your electric bills every year, things like that. So yes, there's a balance between the two.
Be part of, and we certainly could consider
Yeah,
higher level of lead.
yeah.
That we just picked kind of the,
Currently,
Average.
you pay $50,000 on your electric bills for the current building over there
Per year?
per year.
That's really great to
Give or
know.
take a couple thousand each year, but yes. It does have solar on top of it right now.
yeah. So it would make a difference in operating costs, which eventually, that also makes a difference in how much we pay for debt service. But
Yeah, I mean, I
pretty,
understand there's,
not a huge difference.
yeah, and I understand there's different buckets of money, but saving in either bucket is a good idea,
Right.
I mean, so,
And there's a possibility of some grant funding
sure.
as well. But again, not a huge percentage of the project.
So we pay $50,000 a year currently, we'd be doubling the size of the building, but we'd be more than twice energy efficient, I'm sure, than what we have already. Do we have any projections on cost of electricity?
No, because we don't
Okay.
really have a final plan.
Yeah,
yet,
that's true.
so. But roughly, I would assume you could say that.
Yeah.
Or Doug?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to confirm something, I guess, that partly from what you said at the last meeting, that the space is not necessarily being driven primarily by assumptions about increased staff. It's more to bring up all of the areas to more current standards. Is that a fair summary?
That's the primary driver, bringing public safety up to modern standards. The secondary, yes, there is going to be potential staff increases, and planning for those now just helps you down the line so that you're not landlocked in the future. But that square footage is just a tiny portion of the overall increase in the square footage. That it's really spaces that your police and firefighters do not have currently that they need in order to do their jobs efficiently and effectively.
Teresa?
Andrew, does your firm also, I don't know how to ask this question. I work in IT, so I'm imagining, and I know that our police department uses more and more technology, which requires storage and servers, and that requires cooling and special rooms, and it's really expensive. And I'm just curious what conversations have been had about that, or if this is the time to talk about it. I don't want to take it out of order.
At this point, the conceptual level, we make general assumptions based on our past projects. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll use Oconomowoc Police Department as an example. The city decided at that time they were going to move all of the city servers over to the police department's server room. So that became the main server room for the city. That has a redundant computer room air conditioner. It's Liebert is the name of the company that makes the system. So there's a redundant system there, and they cycle, on and off. And that's on generator power, battery backup, the whole bit, so that they don't lose anything going forward. And so we take things like that we've done in the past and build them into all of our projects.
Which, to me, sort of falls under the categorization of modernization, right? It's just a
Yes.
new way of doing business. Yeah.
And we do already have generators. and-
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all in police department currently.
right.
It just feels like there's always a demand for more. I don't know.
Yeah. So it seems to be increasing.
Yeah.
Anyone else have questions?
So what are you looking for from us tonight?
Well, I guess I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask questions about the proposal, and at some point soon, if not tonight, next week, or in the next meeting, I would like to see possible action on if you want to pursue building, and if you do, if you want to pursue a referendum, I think we would have to come back with referendum language.
We would, but I think you have 90 days to actually have form that question. So 90 days?
I would have to look.
Yeah, I think it's 90 days. You have to have that, so sometime early, 90 days before April, the election. But you'd want to have it out there and start promoting it before that.
Right. Right, and the council has to approve the language of a referendum.
So are you asking for our vote on whether to approve this particular building plan on that site?
No, this would just be to approve moving forward on a public safety building. This isn't by any means a final plan. But yeah,
But on the
on
basis,
that site,
Yeah.
right.
on this site, and with using this, what they have
Right.
as the basis for it.
True.
Yeah.
So the staffing numbers, the square footage numbers,
Okay.
some of that may change in terms of square footage. And especially staffing, obviously, you're not approving adding all that staff. That was just department's best guess as to what they would need 20 years from now.
Yeah.
So that is something that if it does happen, will be happening over time in the future.
Aside from Andrew, where can I find on this? I'm just looking for folks that I could reach out to who have been involved in this process, if I had any questions between
In terms of the discussion,
Yeah.
well, both of the chiefs, Assistant Chief Ekloff,
Yeah.
who is Detective Losby, for the police department, Leah, Dan Stefani was at those meetings too, wasn't he? Mark and I.
Municipal court clerk, right, Andrew? He probably can't hear me.
I don't know if he was much involved with it, but he, yeah.
I'm sure Leah talked to him.
Yeah. I think the main ones would be the two chiefs, and admin would be probably the mayor and myself, or Dan, are involved in it.
And Leah,
And Leah.
yeah.
And never having constructed a public safety building, I'm just curious, is it pretty typical that the folks that work with the consulting agency would just be from, it would be city staff and city leaders?
At this point,
At this point?
I would say that's probably pretty typical, isn't it, Andrew? Because those are the people you need to talk to get your numbers from
Right.
and your
As
information.
far as the study is concerned, yes, it's primarily city staff. As we get further into a project, obviously, Mayor, you're talking about some of the community outreach going on. That would happen as well. But then I think there are projects where we do have input from others in the city beyond just city staff. It really varies project to project.
Yeah, once we get to, if the referendum passes, we get to the actual design of the building, then I plan to appoint a building construction committee.
Got it.
And that would be
Got it.
city residents, some
Yeah.
staff as well. We also, I'm about 99% sure, would hire a construction, what do you call them, a construction manager?
Correct.
Yeah.
Kind of to represent the city's interest. And I know we had someone volunteered actually on that basis when we were doing the library project, and he saved us a lot of money. So, and I know the school district just have those
Yeah.
too. So that,
Right.
I mean, we definitely, in fact, I had Brian start working on a potential contract for that position before he left. So we have a draft of that ready now. So yeah, we'd have a lot more input. This is just to get the information that they needed
Preliminary stuff.
to see if it works, to see if that mass would work on that site, I guess.
I just know city staff, I could never possibly expect our city staff to also be expert in how these things work. You've got your other job that you were hired for, and this is just such a heavy lift, so I'm glad to know that we'll be pulling from expertise in the
Right.
community.
And we do have our city facilities committee as
Right.
well that
Right.
has got some gaps there right now, but we do have,
Electricians and
yeah, people with experience in different trades, and they would be also reviewing any plans. So, Brian or Patrick?
I mean, I guess if we look at the project and we look at it 20 years from now, right, leave it alone and just fix, I mean, is that even possible? Are we at the point where we have to do this,
I think we pretty much are. Do you think a lot of our problems are, well, in order to fix it, we'd have to do a big addition, right? Because we don't have enough space. Do you think the current site is fixable, Andrew, after?
You're talking about using everything that's existing on the building right now? No. I would say that your fire apparatus bay in particular is beyond what you could ever expect that building to do. I think Chief McMullen has done the best he can with the space provided, but things are really stuffed in there pretty tight. So if you're going to put money into a project, I would not recommend renovating and just dealing with what you have there.
I think we would have to add space.
Okay, and I was just curious,
Yeah.
just
No,
ask that
and I asked
question,
too, yeah.
like
Yeah.
20 years from now, how's it look? And I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we probably need to go to referendum
Yeah.
for this, or we want to.
Brian?
Yeah, I think that's a good point with that apparatus bay. I remember years ago, we had the discussion regarding even just some of the exhaust issues and how to manage the exhaust.
Right.
And that's an example of one of the temporary fixes of like, okay, with the building we have, how do we deal with it? We ended up picking up kind of the second tier version of how is it that you manage exhaust in that type of a situation, which only costs more and is not nearly as effective as a building that's built to handle and address the issues that you needed to address.
Well, I saw their storage area. And that's just basically, there's no storage area.
No.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the Bray study and then the update facility study, we've been kicking this down the road for a long, long, long time.
Like 10 years at least.
At least 10 years.
It
And
sounds like we should do it.
I know the previous mayor, although struggled with knowing this was a major issue and wanting it addressed, didn't feel they could take that on, and it's been long overdue. I think we should be going to a referendum this
Yeah.
spring.
Okay.
I agree.
I also agree.
Mark?
I want to ask Andrew, they told us in one of our meetings every 10 years, is that correct, that the cost doubles? Is that, I believe you said
Used
something.
to be.
What's that?
Now that's a low number.
Okay.
Now it's much more than that. It's gone up 25% is year over year alone. So you're looking at some pretty significant escalation numbers coming up.
And your numbers are 2024 estimates, correct?
Correct. So my numbers made the assumption that you pass your referendum in April, you go right into design, and then you're bidding it in the early part of 2024.
As we move forward.
I was gonna try a motion and see if this gets us what we want. Would be just a motion to move ahead with the public safety building project and direct staff to prepare advisory referendum language to bring back to the council.
Second.
Did someone second that?
Yep.
Patrick seconded that? So we have a motion and a second. More discussion. Teresa, did you have another?
It was just really a comment. I had a really nice conversation with Chief Eckloff, and I think as we move forward, thinking about referendum and why we go to referendum, it's to build community support, and he was able to put into just really easy to understand stories, why this is needed. He talked about backing a truck into the building, and the truck was too long for the building.
So we had to add on to the
had
building.
to, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars to bump out a wall so you could fit the truck in. Well, okay, now you need to think about buying smaller trucks. Well, they don't make smaller trucks. So that's a special custom order, which costs you a lot more, right? We're outside the default settings of how this industry operates, and every time you veer off that path, it costs you more and more money. And I just look forward to more of these just stories that we can share with people and make people understand.
Good point. Anything else? Mark?
Just a couple. I believe, Andrew, you're going to be speaking at the public safety meeting next week. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm waiting for you to confirm that, but I have it on my calendar.
Okay.
It'll be essentially the same presentation he did 2 weeks ago for us.
Then I think also the referendum question, I think we need to look into the next steps, which would be hiring somebody on
Right.
Andrew, but to start helping us get that message out. So,
Right.
because we can't physically, we can't as a council promote it. It's not, we have to.
We have to be essentially, we can provide information, but we can't be out there passing out yard signs. That is, so I think I want to hire someone to help us put together that information to present it in the best, most complete way possible. I'm sure that I know that Andrew knows of some people who do that. Brian Gatto also gave me the name of someone because Middleton is going to referendum. And he had been talking to a couple different people. So I think we have some names we can check into, and we need to start that process soon too.
That's going to come soon too.
Yeah, so. Anything else?
I just, when Mr. Mayor, when Andrew does present to the public, I just cannot stress enough the importance of stories and relatable, explanations, and just, it doesn't matter that it's prettier. We need to, there's got to be better reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think we need to try to get a lot more people in there to take tours.
Yeah.
We did tours
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, but of course it was in the middle of COVID. Because all you have to do is walk through both the apartments, and it's very obvious why we need to do this.
Unless you
the video doesn't do justice to it.
Unless you walk through and you think that this is just what they all look like.
Right.
If I haven't toured other communities, public safety buildings, in my mind, I think, this is what one looks like. Okay.
Yeah, and practically everyone else has a
and
new one
And a
now.
lot of people haven't. They don't have that comparative perspective. So
Yeah, that's true.
I think anybody walking through there would be able to tell it's an outdated,
It is outdated, yes.
outmoded
Yes.
facility for, yeah.
Yeah.
Brian?
Is what you're needing from us not necessarily approval for staff to work on language regarding the question, but it's for, to be able to move forward regarding a project plan and a proposal for hiring and next steps? Because what I'm hearing is hiring an agency or a firm to address the public comment piece and to lay out the whole project of
Right,
from
and I think,
from soup to nuts.
and your proposal, your proposed resolution did say move ahead with the public safety building project.
Right.
Correct, so I
And,
think that's.
and direct staff.
And direct staff to put together
parts, yeah.
language.
Yeah, I'm a little less concerned about the language since we think the 90-day window before the election, I think we have time for that. I think
Right.
there's a general, at least I sense a general kind of support for the idea of like, yeah, we want to move forward, but I want to make sure you have what you need regarding putting together a proposal to connect with an agency to do the work, because
Right, and I mean, I personally think saying move ahead with the project covers that.
Okay.
If someone wants to add more specific language, that's fine, too.
it's good for me. I'm just not concerned about the second part, which
Yeah.
is the proposal regarding the referendum language at this point.
Yep.
Because whoever we hire for the consultant will help us shape that.
Right, yeah, I was thinking that, too, that we would certainly run that by them, and we'd run it by the attorney and all those kind of things. But, yeah, I think we can come up with a list of initial steps we have to take.
Yeah,
And, we'll share that with you, all of you certainly, but I think this vote would cover what we need to do initially. Any other questions? You think we need a roll call? I suppose we probably should have a roll call on this. Would the clerk please call the roll? I'm sorry, Andrew, did you have anything else to add?
We're voting
No, I think you all covered it for now.
Okay. Thank you. Did someone else have?
No.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder DePulo.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you all very much. We can add this to our list, Mark. Okay, next item is closed session. Convene in closed session under Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, paren 1, paren D, except as provided in Section 304.06, paren 1, paren EG, and by rule promulgated under Section 304.06, paren 1, paren EM, considering specific applications of probation, extended supervision, or parole, or considering strategy for crime detection or prevention. This is focusing on strategy for the safety and security of city council meetings. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder DePulo.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
We are in closed session. Thank you.
Make sure.
Jackson, you want to?